Run it back, Nation. What is good? It is Monday, September 1st. It is Labor Day. I don't really know what Labor Day is or what it means, to be honest with you. Let me know in the comments if you know what it means. Anytime someone's like, no, we're going the weekend after Labor Day. I'm like, when the f is that, dude? Can I get a date? Like, I don't know. Like, it's right before Memorial Day. I don't know what that is either, bro. Anyway. We are a little less than 2 months away from NBA season. Sixers' first game is on October 22nd. Let's see if there is any Sixers news we could talk about or react to. As usual, I typed in Sixers on Google. The first two things here I think are kind of interesting. The Patrick Beverley gives high praise to Paul George. I really want to hear, but first I got to see Sixers icon Allen Iverson found himself on a recent list by CBS Sports. Top 25 list. This better be top 25 of all time. Allen Iverson, pound for pound, is top 5 all time. Find another guy. I don't care. I don't care, bro. I don't care. Anybody that leaves Allen Iverson out of a top 5 list is lying. Find another man about 5'11", $160, who could lead the best basketball league in the world in scoring 4 different times. An 11-time All-Star. Took Tyrone Hill and Aaron McKee to the NBA Finals. The dude, it will never be seen again. If Allen Iverson was 6'5", he might have been the best basketball player of all time, which is why I think he deserves to be on everybody's at least top 10 list. But anyway, here's a top 25 list, I guess. Former Philadelphia 76er and Hall of Famer Allen Iverson is introduced during the second quarter against the Oh, that's the photo. Okay, let's see what this article says. The past 25 years have seen some legendary figures, some breaking records and others participating in dynasties that will define certain eras in league's history. Chiseling down a list of some of the most influential faces from that time period was something that was highlighted in a recent article by CBS Sports. Are they talking about most influential? Who from the Sixers cracked the list? James Harden. The first former Sixer to make what was the list, bro? The past 20. What was the list, bro? Must see games. A list by CBS Sports. Recent top 25 list. Top 25 what? 25 years have seen some legendary figures in the NBA come and go, with some breaking records and others. A list of some of the most influential faces from that time period. This is a list of influential faces? What? All right, let's just see. Influential faces. What? Is that what this is? The first former Sixer to make the list was James Harden, coming in at 15th, listed right above Luka Doncic under Steve Nash. These weren't the reasons for Harden making it on CB's, as they highlighted his usage rate and shooting percentage, as well as breaking step back three, which became somewhat of a signature move for the 16-year. Okay. You could have put like what the title of the list was in this article, but it was top 25 most influential. Okay, it was most influential of the last 25 years. Yeah. Jesus. James Harden. Okay. I mean, you know, yeah, he has a signature step back. James Harden changed the game of basketball for a time period until the NBA said, all right, enough of this bullshit. And my camera died. That hasn't happened for a while. James Harden changed the NBA for a couple of years until the NBA said, all right, enough of this bullshit. We're going to stop calling these fouls. James Harden outsmarted the NBA's officiating system for a period of time. That's what he did. He became very, very good at foul baiting, hooking the arm, leaning in, getting to the free throw line on technicalities. Yeah, I'm sorry, Harden stands. That's what he did. I don't know if that puts him on most influential. Dwight Howard? I mean, he was a great center in his early days. Took the Orlando Magic to the NBA Finals. Won a dunk contest. Allen Iverson, his final ex-Sixer to crack the list, was one of the more influential in the franchise's history. Iverson was drafted by the Sixers, the first pick in '96 draft. I think Allen Iverson, okay, the fact that he managed to lead the league in scoring 4 separate occasions and win MVP despite his small stature alone places him on this list valid. He might not have been the most efficient scorer, but Iverson's quick first step and athleticism made him difficult to bottle up. I hate when people talk about efficiency when they talk about Allen Iverson. If Allen Iverson wanted to be efficient, he would have shot the ball less, and the 76ers would have relied more on who, and they would have lost a lot more games. It's not always about efficiency. If we're talking about most influential, Allen Iverson is one of the most influential players in NBA history. He changed everything. He came into the league when players were wearing suits and ties walking into games, and he was wearing throwback jerseys and fitted hats, and he brought late 90s, early 2000s, he brought a real hip-hop culture to the NBA. A lot of old white folks didn't like it. A lot of old folks from every race and culture didn't like it. And now players dress however they want, say whatever they want, do whatever they want. They make rap songs, they make podcasts, they do everything. Before Allen Iverson, none of that was okay. That's a fact. So there's that list. Anyway, let's go see what Patrick Beverley said about Paul George. Patrick Beverley gives high praise to Sixers. What high praise could you give to Paul George after last season? If he's not talking about last season, he's just talking about Paul George's career, then I'll probably agree. 76ers star Paul George has dealt with his critics in his first season in the city of brotherly love after signing a 4-year, $212 million contract 2024 offseason. George was limited to only 41 games in his first season and saw his numbers drop across the board. Of course they did. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that he was right, that when he's right, George is still one of the top players in the league. Is he? Or is he washed? What does when he's right mean? When healthy? If healthy? Or like there's a line too, bro. You know what I mean? Like I feel like everybody forgets this, especially Daryl Morey. Daryl Morey does not believe in father time. And everybody does this whole, well, they're injured, when they get healthy. Bro, you can't take a player who's 45 years old and cooked and say, yeah, but when he's healthy. No, he's fucking old, dude. Like, there's a when healthy, there's a if healthy, and there's also like he's 35 and he's done. There's a line where you start to decline because of your age, and you start to get injured more because of your age. Why don't these people believe in age, dude? The 76ers had the oldest roster in the NBA last year. And Nick Nurse is like, oh, we just had so many thumb injuries and wrist injuries. And yeah, because you're old, dude. Because everybody's old. Why can't everybody figure that out? Former Sixers guard Patrick Beverley hopped on the Pat Bev pod and gave his love to Paul George while debating Paul George versus Klay Thompson. We know Paul George a couple years ago, he was in the MVP race. Couple years ago. When? Indiana days? Maybe OKC days? That's a little more than a couple years ago, bro. We're talking like 10 years ago. If you substitute them two right, I think that Golden State probably wins more championships. Did he really say this?
But on that exact podcast, Klay Thompson was giving Paul George a lot of credit. Klay Thompson might have a bunch of ships, he might have a bunch of rings, but he's never had to be the number one option on a team. How do you look at their careers as a differentiator? Whose career would you rather, or who do you think shines more?
If you put Paul George in that role as Klay Thompson, playing with Steph, Draymond Green, Iguodala at a point. Obviously, we know Paul George.
Kevin Durant.
But we know Paul George was, a couple years ago, he was in
MVP race.
The MVP race. If you substitute them two, right, I think, and we don't know, but we just going off what we think in basketball, I think that Golden State probably wins more championships.
No. And that's not taking anything away from Paul George. But no. I do not agree with that. I think Paul George is overall better player than Klay Thompson, of course. More versatile player than Klay Thompson. More of a combo game, more of an ISO game, more of a number one scoring option type of game. More of an athleticism type of game. And probably, if not better, probably just as good of a defender, if not a better defender, was Paul George. So I understand where he's coming from. And last year, Paul George was a 45% catch and shoot three-point shooter. He led the NBA in catch and shoot threes last year, and catch and shoot three-point percentage just last season. So Paul George is also a very, very good catch and shoot three-point shooter, but not as good as Klay Thompson. And I'll go fit over everything. And Klay Thompson was such a perfect fit, style-wise, next to Steph Curry. It was a match made in heaven. And somebody like Paul George, who's a better scorer on three different levels, I don't think that fits as well. I still think they're very, very good with Paul George in place of Klay Thompson. But the way Klay Thompson would catch fire and just light it up, and him, I think also Klay Thompson not being an ISO guy and not being an individual scorer or a creation type of scorer, get to the rim, get to the type of scorer, allowed Steph Curry to be Batman. You know? Paul George wasn't a Robin. The problem is everybody wanted to form a super team after the LeBron James, Dwayne Wade era, and they wanted two Batmans. But even Dwayne Wade took a backseat to LeBron James for that to work. Nah, I think Klay Thompson was just an absolutely perfect fit next to Steph Curry. Paul George was great. He was great. He's not good anymore, unfortunately. George and the Sixers will be looking to bounce back in the 2025-26 season after injuries ravaged their first year. If he and Joel Embiid can return healthy, the Sixers will be in serious contention for an NBA title due to the state of... I want to say this, too, before we get out of here. If healthy... I want to say this, too, before we get out of here, because a lot of people say this. The Sixers will be in serious contention for an NBA title due to the state of the Eastern Conference. The bar is in hell. The bar is below hell. The bar is below the earth. The bar is below hell, outside the bottom of the earth and into space underneath the earth. That's how low the bar is. When we Sixers fans are saying, yeah, we suck. Yeah, we can't stay healthy. Yeah, the roster construction makes no fucking sense. Yeah, we have no cap space. Yeah, we still have all the old guys that we hated last year. Kyle Lowry, Eric Gordon, Andre Drummond. But if everybody else is injured, we might be okay. We might get into the playoffs and win some games because the Pacers are hurt and the Celtics are hurt and the Bucks are falling off. Do we really want to get into the playoffs and win a couple of games by default? You know? Like the skinniest kid in fat camp is still a fat kid. If healthy.